Twitter, and I'm really excited to discuss this. It was sent in by a gentleman. His name is C.C. Bass. And they ask, we would love to hear about miracles/inspiration versus modern skepticism. Can miracles and smart people coexist? P.S. Awesome podcast. Hey, thanks, man. And to any friends of our podcast, we very much appreciate the love and the comments that we are starting to see pop up on iTunes or in Facebook. There, it's been pretty warm, receptive, minus the one guy who sent us a long email about how James screwed up something about Star Wars that was just super arbitrary.
Nerds get so mad.
Yeah,
You're gonna have no friends.
That's actually not. That's actually incorrect.
Anyhow, so can miracles and /inspiration versus modern skepticism? And let's be clear, we're not talking about inspiration like whether or not the Bible itself is inspired, because none of us would say that it isn't. We all think the Bible is divinely inspired for sure, but versus modern skepticism. So let's focus a little bit on that last part because it's a little bit more succinct. Can miracles and smart people coexist?
Miracles in
skepticism. Can you be a miracle believer and a believer in skepticism? Let's go there. So I think this is a pretty interesting question for by and large, because of what it has to tell us in relation to our understanding of religion and science, right? And as science begins to prove more things, one of the critiques that we see coming out of that camp, even though science and religion don't really mix all that often, right? Their primary goals are
some people try to make them mix.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah, like Isaac Newton, crazy people.
But as far as it stands in the modern setting, right, their goals are not to necessarily prove or disprove
I would disagree
each
with
other.
that. I would just, and just the way that you're saying, I think when they are trying to define truth and
science speaks to things that are observable. Religion at its core does not. And so religion assumes axiomatic things that science doesn't understand. So at their core, they are contrastly exclusive. And so because religion is provable up to a certain degree, but at a certain point, it takes an axiomatic approach where you have to assume something that cannot be proven.
I don't know what that big word is, so I think you win that argument. But no, I'm just saying that
right. That's not
plenty of religion is observing what God does and what God's created and how God works in people's
but
lives.
Their cores are different. Therefore, out of the growth of their cores, there is some branching, intermingling there, but at
in
their
its
cores,
own self, how it defines themselves.
Yeah, they define themselves by two different trajectories.
Sure.
Yeah, and so, but there is
axiomatic. What the heck?
It's a faith assumption. You're making a specific faith assumption.
I think you made that up.
And no, just trust me.
It's a new accent. Axiomatic.
Axiomatic. Never mind.
The superhero axiomatic actually has the power to make others confused.
That was a really weird voice there.
It's my super nerd.
It started nerd and then it became child.
That's like you're not allowed within 50 feet of a Chuck E. Cheese voice. Yeah. But there's so as science and religion continue to grow and explore and expand, and as we become more knowledgeable in our observable universe and things that we begin to understand more, is there a room for the modern skeptic in the church? Is there room for the modern skeptic in the religion of Christianity or any other religion for that matter? Though it would be my personal argument that no other religion.
I'm not sure that's the question.
Invites skepticism to the same page. So the exact question is, can miracles and smart people coexist? There. So go ahead and give us your starting answer, and then we'll kind of move in from there.
Well, I mean, I'll just say it. I've never witnessed a miracle as people tend to define them, which is like something very outside of the bounds of nature occurring in front of me. I'm not sure that I've ever seen that. I'd like to believe that exists and that it happens, but I'm not a witness to it. Where I find God's work more prevalent in my life is being able to reflect upon the way events happen in my life and seeing in those events a guiding hand, a helping hand at times, seeing opportunities arising or coincidence happening that were very helpful to my life. And
I mean, those could be miracles. I mean, in some...
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying these are things I have seen.
Do we want to set out a common definition for miracle that we can operate under?
Breaking the laws of nature.
Yeah.
Isn't the resurrection a miracle? I mean, so it isn't basically asking, can you be a smart person and be a Christian?
Okay, so you just totally stole my thunder, bro.
That's why I spit it out right now before you could get
That's
to
okay,
it.
Chief. You'll have your chance.
That really sucks. I can call him my bro because he's literally my brother.
Fair enough.
So get you back
Shut
for
up.
the 20 questions.
Touche.
I think
He's so mad.
I think there's also an unfair expectation, even among Christians, that miracles should be these, like let's say healing miracles, for example, somebody being healed of a sickness. That these things are that they should be prevalent, that they should be accessible. I'm not so sure I see a lot of evidence for that in the Bible. I see Jesus when he is interacting directly with somebody, healing people. I see
As long as it doesn't interfere with his greater purpose.
Yeah, I see in the book of Acts examples of some of the apostles being able to work in that way, but I don't see the assertion that you should expect those sorts of miracles in your lives on a regular basis. In fact, if that's the case, then the death of saints wouldn't be such a common thing in the Bible, right?
Or even the problems that Paul faced.
Right. I mean, Paul in 2 Corinthians talks about he has something that he calls a thorn in the flesh, and we can debate about whatever it is, but he wants it so badly to be removed from his life, and basically he says what he discovers is it's not going to be removed.
2 Corinthians 12.
He gets to
for
live
those
with it.
Interested.
And that God's grace is going to be sufficient for him, meaning whatever this thing, it's not going to be removed from you, and you're just going to have to live to learn in grace anyway. And I think I see much more of an assertion for that in the Bible. So I don't really require like supernatural, very visible miracles in my life, and I'm not sure that I've ever seen any. Like I said, I've seen kind of what more might be considered providence, right? Like sort of the gentle pushing of events in life happening.
That's a good distinction to make.
Yeah, so I've seen that, and I'm a proponent of that, and I definitely teach that. But I have family members, I have very close friends who have attempted to convince me that they've seen very supernatural things, and I'm not arrogant enough to tell them that they haven't seen it, but I've not seen it, and that's all I can really say, to be fair.
Yeah, and that's a good point for honesty there in terms of trying to kind of promulgate something otherwise. So
Yeah, I mean,
Darren?
I agree with James 100%, so I'm not going to say anything. No, just kidding. No, I do agree with him. I'm not kidding on that. Yeah, I haven't seen God work outside of nature or beyond the bounds of nature personally. Those things aren't really, not to get scientific, they aren't really documented in a way that to me says this is how God works on a regular basis. Because of what we see in the New Testament and with the apostles, it's hard to say that God no longer does that with the way that he interacts with the world, that he no longer performs supernatural acts. But I'm confident in that I feel like that he really, in the way that it's recorded in the Bible, he really doesn't interact with us in that way. If it was so common, like James said, if it was so common, it would
wouldn't
kind
be
of
miraculous anymore, would it? If it was like
and it would just be
super
just a part of the Christian faith that
Yeah.
God just does these incredible things.
Yeah, and let's put it another way. Let's assume for a second that every miracle in the Bible is factual. Let's just, for the sake of argument, assume it for a minute.
Wait, it's not?
Well, I'm just saying that anybody who might
And we're fired.
who might disagree with that, whoever might
Let's
disagree with
all
that
assume,
notion,
regardless of who's listening.
just for a second, just assume for a
Watching.
moment. There's quite a few miracles in the Bible, but you also have to realize that the Bible is presenting a narrative that takes place over maybe 1,000 years.
right.
Right.
Maybe
So
more.
all those miracles in the Old Testament spread out over quite a few decades or centuries. So really not that many according, like when you're thinking on a week by week, month by month basis.
Right.
And when you get to the New Testament, most
Bang,
of the
bang,
miracles,
bang, 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 bang.
well, most of the miracles are in the work of Jesus over a 1 to 3 year ministry, right? That begins and ends in that way.
Yeah, does Paul talk about? Yeah, nothing comes to mind off the top of my head where Paul distinctly discusses like a defiance of the laws of nature being seen in his life. He's beaten death he does a couple times,
Bit
right?
by the snake.
Yeah, bit by the snake, not dying. The affliction at Troas, he suffers, and
He gets depicted in Acts in miraculous events, but you're asking in his letters, how often does he talk about it?
yeah,
Right.
more so in his letters.
Um,
But I guess maybe the cause for that might be unnecessary because they're thematic in nature, right? And so it may not be important to his reason of writing. So maybe that's the reason why he doesn't bring them up. You know, it doesn't mean that they don't exist, but so
Yeah, the thing that I struggle with is that I don't think miracles have to be translated and convinced that others are miracles. And that's kind of the problem with today's miracles, is that Christians or whatever faith, they're trying to convince others that this relatively small occurrence is actually providence and God working.
Yeah.
I don't really see that in the Bible, that the miracles are so blatant and so obvious that everyone in witness
instantaneously knows they're
knows
miracles.
that God did something,
Right.
regardless of their belief. And I don't, because of that, the miracles that we see that people claim today, they aren't like the miracle. Yeah, God has always done miracles. Look at the Bible; He did miracles. But the reference that I will use for the sake of knowing it is that movie where the girl falls out of the tree and she's like cured of some random brain cancer. I have no idea.
Yeah,
The trailer.
It's coming out. It's not.
Yeah,
out yet,
yeah. It's
but-
like you're convincing people this is a miracle, when if it was a miracle, you would know. And why did she have to fall out of a tree and hit her head for God to perform that supernatural action? He could just do it without all the pretense of.
Yeah, and I guess I have two things. For me, the little bit of a miracle isn't always necessarily just simply defined as defiance of the laws of nature. For me, miracles tend to have more to do with timing, I guess. But I guess that might fall under providence, James, that you were saying there. But timing is a big thing for me.
You sound like C.S. Lewis over here. C.S. Lewis.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, he's got
I don't think I've ever read a C.S. Lewis book in my life.
Oh, really? He's got a theory on miracles that all it is a manipulation of time.
Oh, okay, cool.
In his book,
That's like an
Miracles.
evangelical saint, so I'm in pretty good company right there. But mainly to Chris's point, and to extrapolate that on a little bit, our whole faith is predicated on the belief in a miracle there. And so if, like, we took communion this morning, and so as I was leading our communion meditation for the whole church this morning, and I was really personally very moved at just the idea of like just how long of a week I had, how difficult of a week I had, and I came and to this idea of beginning to prepare for this, and then I thought about just the significance and the substantiality that the cross represents in my life and in our lives as a congregation. And I think about the 2,000 years worth of people that have come before me and have agreed on the same thing and have made this the central event in their life. And all of this hinges on the belief of 12 and more people who are either saying that they truly believe that this miracle happened, or they are intentionally promulgating something on a lie there, because there is no way that you can argue that the apostles either A, didn't believe it, or B, knew what they believed was false but were willing to die and suffer for that anyway. So my entire belief system hinges on a miracle anyway. So can miracles and smart people coexist? The answer to that may actually be no, depending on what your definition of smart people is. But for the sake of Christendom and Christianity, the answer has to be yes, because you assume the miraculous raising of the dead, which is a clear defiance of the laws of gravity there. And so
Gravity?
I mean, laws of nature. Well, yeah, I mean, and gravity.
the laws of
'Cause-
gravity.
Well, it is the laws of gravity technically, because he
It's
rose
a
up.
theory of gravity.
And isn't a theory a law? Theory is basically a law. And that's the... Oh, I see what you did there.
He did rise up,
And I see what you did there.
floated away.
And so, for me, the answer is certainly. I don't consider myself smart, but I consider people... Dr. Francis... What's his name? The guy who worked on the Human Genome Project. But he's a believer there, Dr. something or other. And I'm not just making that up. And so the idea of, like, people being smart like that, believing in God and believing in miracles, like, they're way smarter than I am there. And so we all believe in something, and we all assume, again, some axiom or some content that can't be proven as a smart person, that can't be proven in the sense that we understand proving there. And I'm also hard-pressed to see that if God were to work outside the realms of nature in a commonplace occurrence in contemporary settings, it wouldn't make any difference to me, at least, and maybe people can disagree with this, but the idea of, like, Jesus condemns people for not condemns the hearts of those who saw him do things, and said, this unbelieving generation, a sign will not be shown to you, because, what does it matter to you? It's not what you want. And so if you want to not believe, you're always going to find a reason to not believe there, right? You didn't turn enough water into wine, or he didn't make enough fish and loaves. So I'm just, like, that's just where I kind of find myself with that. Like, if, because Chris and I have heard story. I mean, we talk about the missionary Tony Almschlecker, right? And that guy's got millions of stories, not literally, but very many stories about the miracles that he had seen worked in his own ministry and his own life in different portions of the world there. And
Gosh, missionaries get the best miracles.
and yes, their kids suffer the most, but they get the best miracles. But so the idea of that being like, you know, if God's going to do that, God's going to do that. But I don't think it is indicative of you being any more or less smart or more or less spiritual if you believe that those things can coexist. So those are some thoughts. Yeah, you want to add anything, Cristobal?
No, I think you guys covered it pretty well. And
We have any other things we want to attach to that? Jamothy, are you searching something?
Yeah, there's a passage in 2 Corinthians that I know the passage, but I can't think of exactly where it is. Where actually you're asking, does Paul's letters ever refer to miracles? And Paul talks about performing miracles and signs in front of the Corinthians. In 2 Corinthians, but I just can't for the life of me remember where in 2 Corinthians that is. And he speaks as if it's assumed they would agree with him. He says, remember the miracles I performed in front of you. But I can't remember where that is to save my
Is that during his conversation with the super apostles? In 2 Corinthians 12?
Yeah, again, I
12 and 13.
can't remember. It's one of those things like it's in the back of my mind somewhere, but it's not coming to me.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. Corinthians.
I feel like people have a different level of miracle tolerance or not obsession. They need miracles to be true today for their faith to be fulfilled and their faith to be strong, you know, and that's kind of troubling for me because it's something that's very varies a lot. It's kind of conjecture to whether or not this is a miracle or this isn't.
Take a look
a
at 2
miracle.
Corinthians 12:12, James.
It's 12:12. See, I kept on thinking it was 12:2. So Paul, just kind of along the way, he says, I'll start in 11. He says in 2 Corinthians 11 through 12, I have been a fool. You forced me to it. Indeed, you should have been the ones commending me, for I am not at all inferior to these super apostles, even though I am nothing. So he's being criticized, and he's defending himself against criticism. And then he says in verse 12, the signs of a true apostle were performed among you with utmost patience, signs and wonders and mighty works, which these are Greek terms for doing miraculous things, supernatural things. And he's referring to himself in third person, saying, like, these are things that were done among you. You know about them, as if they wouldn't disagree.
Right.
So he does say that. He does say that.
But and then again, even that in and of itself is mentioned in the kind of the rhetoric of sarcasm, right? And there where he's promulgating himself up unnecessarily to say that he's all that is rubbish compared to what he just talked about earlier when he said that, right, for when I'm a fool or for when I'm weak, then I'm strong at the end of 10 there. So those are some of our thoughts on miracles, Seabass. I think we would all agree that they can happen. And I think Chris was kind of the first one to ring the bell there with the reference to the.
I had one more thing I would throw in. I was just thinking about what Garrett said, and people who kind of their faith almost hinges on needing miracles now. Right. And when I was growing up, and I haven't read it in a long time, so forgive me if I misquote. But what?
No, nothing.
But
the person, not the book.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Favorite story growing up. And one of the things that always impressed me is when they said, our God can save us, but even if he doesn't. And that was always such a huge, even if he doesn't. Like their faith did not hinge on God performing the miracle and saving them. They still had
Lucky
faith.
for them.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Maybe that's why they got the miracle.
Yeah. In fact, in John, at the end of chapter 2, or it might be at the beginning of chapter 3, Jesus does not entrust himself to people whose faith is based on his miracles.
Right.
It says that. He doesn't trust their faith if it's purely based on the miracles he's done.
Yeah, those are really good points. Those are really, really good points. So if that idea then permeates our understanding of miracality, which is a word I just made up.
Like axiomatic.
That's not a made-up word.
Axios?
That's the Greek for...
I love Axe spray.
Yeah, if you Axe or Tag Body Spray, if you guys would like to sponsor our show, that would be cool.
I think a 1932 Cord comes with an axiomatic transmission.
I don't know. I think you just made that up. 1932, that's not a real number.
1932.
So I think we would all say, Seabass, that the answer to your question is yes. Smart people and miracles can coexist.
He's also right on his second point.
Yes. Thank you for the PS Awesome podcast.
That's right.
So we are very grateful to you. So if you agree, Let us know why, or if you have some kind of opposing thoughts or just different evidence that you would like to support, feel free to leave them in the comments that you'll see below. There, typically our comment sections are still pretty lonely, so they would love some fodder and some fuel there. And if you're going to keep criticizing us, Greg, go for that. We would love you to do that, you jerk. But follow us on all forms of social media. faithandwhatever.com is the website to find us at, and then also on facebook.com/faithandwhatever. Thank you.
Yeah.